afternoon, Ray. What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world.
Preaching freedom.
Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr.
Try
Lance
to
O'Neill.
take over the world.
Yo, what up, world? What up? It is Sunday evening at 8:30, man. Do you know where your POGs are? We're right here. We live and in full effect with another week. It's your boy KJ Bradley, in the world's greatest chaplain, Mr. Lance O'Neill. What up, Chappie? How you doing today, brother?
Doing well. How are you, KJ? You have more going on than I do.
Life is chaos. Yeah, life is chaos right now. Right now, we're doing the indoor camping. We're in the indoor camping phase of our PCS move. So just trying to figure life out, keep the kids there out of school. So we got them 24/7, and they are just toddlers with no toys and no recreation. Is just insane. I feel like we're living in caveman times.
Yeah, I forget. Yeah, when everything's packed up and they don't have the toys and everything, that's not good. I mean, I assume they still have their iPads or whatever.
Yeah, they got their tablets, but we got a tablet limit at the house, to where you can only use it 4 hours out of the day. So it's a weird time, man. We're trying to be disciplined and stick to our guns as parents with maintaining the restriction, but at the same time, it's like, we don't. I mean, no TVs. Thankfully, I saved my Mac desktop, so we're using that as a pseudo TV for some kind of entertainment when they're not on their Macs and whatever. And then I got my laptop or whatever. But man, we are slumming it. I always hated this phase of the PCS, man. It's just that awkwardness where it's like, all right, we're done, and then we're down to one car waiting for the flights. So T is PCSing during the week. I'm at home with the toddlers with no outlet, no car. So we are definitely caveman in it, and it's fun times, man. It is fun.
You gave up the car?
Well, we shipped one to Cali already, trying to get a head start. We shipped it early so that it could be there when we get there. And then I'll be driving the battle tank across shortly after I put them on the flight. So it's just, I tell you, man, it's one of them things where if you have never experienced it, PCSs are not for the weak when you have families, man. It is insane.
And the average non-military person doesn't understand that we go through this every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
This isn't like, oh, well, yeah, I've moved before. It's like, okay, when you've moved, let's go through some things. First of all, you decided when and where you were going to move.
Yeah.
You got to choose. You get to say when you leave. You get to say who packs up your house, assuming now definitely. But as far as the control goes, shoot, even part of that is, hey, we are moving on this date. You guys need to come pack us up. Well, okay, we'll be there sometime between this day and this day. And we're going to schedule you for 3 days, a week before you move. The truck will show up when the truck shows up, and then they're going to load. And make sure when the truck shows up and loads your stuff, you're there, because if you don't, things go missing.
Yeah.
I had a set of golf clubs magically go missing. Because I was still working, and my wife didn't. It was our first real PCS, so we get to California, and however, a couple months later, I'm like, hey, where are my clubs, by the way? What do you mean, where are your clubs? And like you said, the vehicles and all that.
Cool.
But
I call it the moving tax. You're ultimately going to. Look, I never want to accuse the movers of taking anything, because I believe in an honest society, but things disappear You can lose about maybe 1% of your personal belongings every PCS move, and it's just a moving tax, gratuity, if you will, for them having to do business.
And that's not including the, oh well, if it breaks, just let us know, and you'll be compensated. Yeah, 60% of what the value was.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
If
always the
if
fun
you
stuff.
could, and if you can prove, like that's the other one. Send us pictures. It's like, oh, here you go. It's complete. It's a desk with a completely broken leg.
Yeah,
Well, how do we know that wasn't broken
yeah,
before? It's like, yeah, because I keep broken garbage around my house,
yeah.
broken
Like, do
furniture.
you
So
have do
just
you have do you have pictures of you sitting in your recliner, moving up and down before? No, why would I? It's just chaos, man.
and
But
and do you have the receipt for when you purchased the recliner? And you're like,
that's always the best. Yeah,
no,
that's always the best part. Yeah, of course I got it. Yeah. Why wouldn't I have a receipt? But
yeah,
we're there. We're getting through it. We got one more week of indoor camping, and then we hit the road, and that's going to be a fun adventure all in itself. Um, the toddlers, the
yeah, but
dog, wife.
you're taking it. Oh wait, I thought they were flying. You're now driving the toddlers and
Well,
the
I got it.
dog.
We're flying out of Atlanta, so we still got to do that drive from here to Atlanta, and then
That's not too
you know,
bad then.
yeah, and then me and the dog doing an old country jog across the country. That's going to be an adventure, all in itself. So either way, man,
Yeah,
I'm
that
excited. Mhm.
yeah, that's where it gets It's weird. Like it's so physically and mentally draining to drive
Oh,
that far for that long.
oh
Um,
yeah.
and to go, I mean, really, there's not much of longer to go from the coast of South Carolina to the Bay Area. Really, about I think the only way you could get any further is maybe as if you were going to JBLM,
Yep.
maybe, but
Yep. From like,
probably
yeah.
not much. Probably not much further.
No, from like Maine to JBLM will probably be a further drive. But other than that, this is it. This is literally touching coast to coast. So
Yeah,
I don't
not
know, man.
not fun.
We're gonna have fun. I'm going to
But
Oklahoma. I'm gonna go
you're gonna
see
make a lot. You make all that money in mileage, all 14
oh
cents
yeah.
a mile.
Oh yeah. That if the claim goes through, who knows? But
Well, you'll get
planning on
mileage.
stopping in Oklahoma. Yeah. Well, I'm planning on stopping in Oklahoma, going to see Bass Reeves' gravesite, which I've always had on my bucket list. And then the Bass Reeves Museum. Like I told you, I'm gonna hit Route 66 for a little while, do the scenic American tourist thing, and then hopefully I don't get deported or something on my way. I've been working real hard not to roll my R's when I speak, so who knows? Anyway, are you ready to get into it?
Well, I am. I'm not sure Fetterman is, but I'm ready to start going.
Let's get into it. So listen, man. All right. So the first topic we're talking about, for you guys that don't know, Pennsylvania Senator, Mr. Hoodie himself, John Fetterman, Fetterman got into a little bit of hot water this week. He was talking about how much he hates going into work to cast votes, or even if they're menial votes, and he'd rather spend the time um, working from home and voting from home so that he can be a father to his kids. And I got to be honest with you, man. When I first read the article, I was like, nah, that doesn't sound right. Surely it was taken out of context. But no, he says because he suffers from depression and because he was honest about his mental issues, he feels like it's being weaponized, and now he doesn't want to go to work anymore and all this other stuff. And I told you one thing that sticks out to me about grifters, and I knew when he was put up to run against Oz in that seat, I said then that all Democrats aren't good Democrats. Um, and he just had grifter energy from the start, man. And he's proven to be one of those guys, right? Like, oh yeah, I'm on your team. I'm on your team. No, I'm not really on your team. And then now he doesn't even want to vote. I looked up his records. I think he has like an 18% absentee vote. Um, the dude is just, I don't know, man. He's one of those guys. Like you've always had one of those guys in the unit, right? They always do the bare minimum, just enough not to get kicked out, but claims that they're fucking superheroes, right? You're welcome for my service. Be like, dude, you didn't do shit. and he's giving me that vibe.
Specialist Fetterman. I think we have a new nickname for him.
Yeah, and he is giving that vibe, just like, all right, so you're a veteran, you got mental issues, you got PTSD. Your job is to freaking vote. You are a senator. What the hell did you think your job was? I have no, like, the issue I have with this, with everything that's going on, and with him being in hot water, he should be trying his best to stay out of trouble right now, right? Like, you got the DUI thing, you got the speeding, you got the fighting with his wife, like all the veteran self-medication issues he is checking the block on right now. And to come back and to cop out and say, oh, well, they're weaponizing my mental health, that's why people don't like me, and because people don't like me because I get mental health help, I don't want to go to work and I should stay home. I should be able to stay home and vote from home. I'm gonna get off the horse, man, because I have a sore spot in my heart for sorry jokers like that, man. What do you think?
Have you ever once thought, oh man, that guy, he's scamming because he's trying to go take care of his mental health. He's going to behavioral health to scam.
Oh, to get out of field problems or exercise or deployment.
Well, they're okay. There are some of those, but I mean, I'm talking about just normal like if you go into work and one of your Joes is like, "Hey, Sarn, just a reminder, I've got a 1400 at behavioral health, so I gotta bounce." You're like, "Cool, you're making your appointment, no problem. All right, great." Now, like you said, the guy who's going, "Hey, we're deploying in 6 months," and suddenly they're going every week. Oh, I was getting overwhelmed this week, so I had to go into behavioral health. That's a little bit different. But what's going on with Fetterman also is his team, meaning the blue team, is also turning against him because he's made the cardinal sin of saying Israel has the right to defend itself. So that has put him, to me, that's where the target has come from, is because he has said, hey, Israel has the right to defend itself. Hamas has brought this on themselves. Too bad, he waves the Israeli flag. And as far as I go, I'm like, go John Fetterman. I like this John Fetterman. It's too bad he's incompetent. Well, they did that whole thing where, didn't they pass a rule originally that said he could show up in, I don't know if it wasn't even a rule, right? He just started showing up in Bill Belichick's special.
Yeah, they had the
hoodie.
Yeah, he was wearing hoodies and beach sandals to the Senate floor to vote. Like,
no, I got to admit, I don't care. You're there to vote. Like, do I care if he's in a hoodie and short baggy shorts and flip flops? No, I really couldn't care less. But at the same time, if that's what's expected, if I go get a job at a bank, I'm probably expected to dress at a certain level.
You would think, right?
You would think. So then the Senate had to turn around and say, okay, you're right. There was no dress code. Now we're writing a dress code. So it's not like he's been ingratiating himself to anybody in Washington. And it's weird. There's this solution that comes to mind. He could, I don't know, resign. Call me crazy if he doesn't want to go to work and doesn't want to vote. And here's the other thing: the replacement would be named by Governor Shapiro, who is a Democrat. So the Democrats are like, yeah, hey, dude, go out. But I'm guessing Fetterman really enjoys that paycheck.
You damn right he does. Yeah.
And the perks that come along with it. And just, again, if you don't know, anybody who is donating, if anybody, Fetterman or anybody else, says, well, I'm still going to run next year. Hey, I still need my campaign funds and all that stuff. At the end, if he decides not to run, that money doesn't go back to the people that donated. He can legally keep every penny
Yeah.
that they don't spend. So why would he get out? He's probably at this point, he's probably ghost writing a book. He's probably having somebody in line, a carrot in the vegetable patch, uh, something. So he's planning his return. Now I know people will say, "Well, a brain-addled Fetterman who doesn't want to show up to work and is in sweatshirts is still better than Dr. Oz." And that to me is where you start going, really, come on. I mean, let's at least be honest. You got to figure Dr. Oz, whether you agree with him or not, and I don't have a lot of skin in the game when it comes to Dr. Oz. I think he kind of shot himself in the foot with some of the things he was promoting. But at the same time, I would think that if Dr. Oz was there, his record as far as showing up to work would probably be a little bit better. And I Oz is, and I mean this, he's in the administration doing something, right?
I think he is.
Something.
He's they put him in charge of health or something like that. Let me see.
It's something medical related, right?
Hmm.
So well, and that also tells you he at least is doing a decent job because he's not coming up on the radar. I've been saying now for a while, if you're not popping up on the radar in this administration or
Oh,
really any politician,
he's in
that's
charge of the
probably
Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
okay. So he's part of that revamping, which again, I that can, but his name hasn't been attached here. The big thing is what the administration thinks that people who are able to work but are on Medicare and Medicaid should actually have to work. I personally,
Yeah.
I'm okay with that point of view. If if you are proving that if you're legitimately unable to work, I don't have a problem with Medicare and Medicaid.
That is
If you
extremely simplified. That is an
well, and
extremely simplified version
of
because
course, well, you have
because
to.
the
You
work
can't really get into the minutiae of it.
I mean the work requirement is already there. There is no need to put a work requirement that's already there. What they're doing is they're reducing services and minimizing the window for people to be able to get Medicaid to the point to where they're going to kick over, I think the estimates were 8 to 10 million people off the program in the first year.
So
It's
we
going to
all
be a
know
long
people,
4 years, man.
but we all know people who are on now. Now again, there's a difference between Medicare and Medicaid. Okay,
Right.
let's be real clear. They're very different things. We all know people that get government support because they are disabled or aren't able to work. Wink, wink, aren't
Like Congress.
able to work. Like Congress. Yes. Yeah. So, and that's where I have, we always talk about what would we do? And to me, I don't think it's even about the patient, right? Okay. And the reason I say that is this: the average person pays taxes, works however long, and they're gonna turn around, they're gonna go, hey, I'm gonna get what I can get. I deserve what I can get, right? All right. So if you go in and you find a doctor who will say this guy deserves benefits because his PTSD, because his depression, his anxiety, his bipolar, his whatever, whatever, whatever. To me, it's up to the doctors because if you're a doctor and you're signing off on people that realistically shouldn't be receiving those benefits, you're the one that should be responsible because again, people are going to try to get over.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so to me, it's the doctors that because I believe you have to go through. It's quite a process to get onto Medicare and Medicaid, at least
It
in
is
New England.
extremely for disability benefits. It is an extremely lengthy and tedious process, right?
Yeah,
You have to have in-person interviews, you have to meet deadlines. within a certain window, you got to go get doctor's opinions. And if they don't agree with the doctor opinion, you got to go see another certified doctor and make an appointment within a certain amount of time, or your case gets dropped and you got to start all the way over, which in lies the problem with this bill, right? It's not like I always say, it's never the headlines, it's always the devil. The details are the devil, which is why people get upset, right? You have, you're making the qualifications and the certifications. Oh, well, you have to see an in-person, you have to make an in-person appointment with a Medicare specialist or with a social security specialist and this sort of thing. But at the same time, you're shrinking those staffs for it. Right now, you're already waiting, 6 to 8 weeks to get an appointment, plus or minus, depending on if you're close to a large hub or not. With these recent cuts to Social Security and Medicare, they're anticipating anywhere between 3 to 6 months for an appointment. Now, mind you, you have a 6-month window to get everything adjudicated. Just like just like if you were the Met Board, right? They give you 90 days to get all your paperwork done and adjudicated, and they make a decision, right? So similar process, just a little longer on the other side. So within that 6-month window, you got to have your initial assessment with the disability services, fill in your application, submit all your paperwork. They'll make an initial decision. They'll say, hey, we agree with this, or hey, no, we don't agree with this. We have questions about this. Go see a doctor and come back, right? If you come back with the doctor that you've already seen, they then can say, oh, well, we don't like that doctor. We want you to go to an independent doctor over here and go see what he has to say. Now, you know what it's like trying to get a doctor's appointment as it is, right? Now, couple that with trying to schedule your appointment within that 3 to 6 month window. And there's I'm not going to say you're not going to be able to, but the probability of you getting all of that stuff done in time is significantly lower. You know what I'm saying? It's just that for an administration that likes to pride itself on being the most transparent, we're going to cut the red tape, we're going to cut the bureaucracy and bullshit. What they're doing is they're putting up these invisible walls where on paper it says, oh no, man, you got plenty of opportunity. You got 6 months. You can do this. But when you go through the red tape and you walk through the paperwork, you realize that it's damn near impossible to get all that stuff done.
So part of me, a large part of me, I don't want to say that's an excuse because I know there's a reality of it. The problem is that the patient is the one that suffers at the incompetence of the professional, if that makes sense. So
yeah, absolutely, sure, I get you that.
Yeah. So that's where, like, these cuts and some of these things, that's where when you talk to people who go through the VA and they say the problem, my providers are good. Like, once I get in front of my provider's great. He does this, she does that. The nurses are professional, the docs are professional, they get me my meds, all that stuff. The problem is getting in front of that person. And I don't know if it's the people answering the phones, the people making the appointments, what it is. But there's also, because the number of providers, yes, that's part of it, but it's the system itself. So let me give you a little anecdote here. And I understand this is an anecdote that's not for everybody.
Yeah.
I went in, I was doing my phase 1 or phase 2 for retirement. I went in and started talking to the provider, and she laid out for me the ridiculousness of the system. They were taking away that she could simply write private so and so did not show up, right?
Yeah.
So now private so and so's Private Snuffy makes an appointment. Private Snuffy is supposed to be there on time. Private Snuffy doesn't show up. And because Private Snuffy doesn't show up, as the provider, she was getting in trouble because, well, why didn't you see Private Snuffy? And she's going, what do you mean? Private Snuffy didn't show up. So now she's turning around and she's personally calling Private Snuffy to try to get a hold. She tells me a story how she says, I went to the file. Private Snuffy did not put her contact information in there. She didn't put her phone number. She didn't have an email address. She had her contact for her mom. I went online, found her mom, called her mom. Her mom called her. She then called in, and then she, so this provider, I mean, talk about going above and beyond to try to get a hold. And she's like, I had to do this, and she's like, I wasted an hour trying to get a hold of this private, and the private was a nothing. It was like, oh, my neck hurts, my shoulder hurts, it was just kind of like a really nothing.
Yeah.
And the reason she did all this was because her supervisor had said, well, you have to do everything you can. And if you don't document every single thing you do, like, it wasn't good enough to say, well, she didn't have a phone number. How was I supposed to get a hold of her? And so my advice, she's like, well, I was like, well, I would ask the supervisor, what do you expect me to do? And she went, that's a good idea. I should do that. But you know what I mean? There's a level, there's two sides. All of it adds up, right?
Yeah, of course.
The person who doesn't follow through, make the administrators who don't schedule them the right way, the providers who now they're supposed to see somebody every 30 minutes, but when one person misses, that actually puts them an hour behind because they can't just move on to the next person. They have to start, and then all the stuff they have to do at the end to write up their notes, yada, 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 right? And so the whole system is kind of screwy. At the same time, so everybody on here knows I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, colloquially known as Mormons. And my church provides more support to the poor than I think just about any other church. I saw a number that said we average $1 million a day in support from taking care of the poor, the needy, emergency relief, all that stuff. It's a significant amount.
I need some of that.
Yeah. Well, I went into so I'd met with a woman from our ward. This was years ago, and she was telling me because we do this thing as members. You go in and you're supposed to, you're assigned a couple of members and you make sure they're doing okay. And she was telling me she was having a problem with this, with rent, and this and this and this, right? So I went into the branch president, who's like the pastor, and said, hey, so this is what's going on with her. She needs help. And he goes, oh yeah, I know what's going on with her. And I to me, my whole thing's kind of like, well, if we can help somebody, we do. And
Right.
he said, well, so here's the thing. I agree with you that if we can help, we should. However, you have to have. There's certain things you have to do. You have to try to help yourself first.
Yep.
Right? What is she doing? Does she still have cable TV? If she can't pay her bills, does she still have cable TV? Does she still have this expense? Is she looking for a job? Has she asked family members? Because to him, he was looking at it saying, this money from the church is coming from tithing, right?
Yeah.
So this is members giving money to the church. So this is the Lord's money. This is not my money. I'm supposed to be a good steward. And I think that you maybe have that to some degree. That's the, I don't know if that's how it's worked out, but I think that's the idea behind Doge and some of these things. The idea
Doge?
is,
oh, fuck no.
Well, no.
No.
What I mean is, I'm giving them the hugest benefit of the doubt you can, right? What I mean by that is, I want government to look at it like this. I want government to say, every dollar we're spending is money that comes from American taxpayers. So we need to be better about this. Now, whether it's Doge, whether it's Congress, whoever's spending the money, like even the military, you and I have been in long enough that you will have the money guys, the budgetary guys, the G8 say, oh, well, this is taxpayer dollars. I can't approve that. And you're going, well, What do you mean you can't approve? I took a taxi from the airport home. What do you mean you can't approve? Well, it's only approved for $35, and you
Yep.
had a $40 on here. It's like, well, that's what the charge was. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, that's not approved. And instead of going, we can only pay you $35, they say, nope, zero.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Oh, you're missing the receipt. You're right. I'm missing a receipt from a taxi driver who drove me from the airport home because they didn't have a receipt in their card to give me a receipt. Because that $40, that's really where I'm getting over. Ha
Well,
ha ha.
I mean, listen, that's where you get over. Elon is watching.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, so I get the idea behind Medicare and Medicaid and taxpayer money and trying to be careful and fraud, waste, and abuse. And the problem is people aren't honest. People are going to take advantage of the system, no matter what the system is. And I'm not saying they cheat. Like when you're done with your PCS, you're going to say, here's my mileage. Here's the hotels I stayed in. Here's the receipts. I get a per diem. That's a certain amount of days. So if you decide on the drive, I'm going to eat peanut butter and jelly on bread, I don't know what else you would eat peanut butter and jelly on, but
Yeah.
if you just eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches the entire way through, and you're like, hey, the per diem's $113 a day or whatever it is, I have to pocket that 100. Yeah, because you know what? You are allowed that amount.
Yeah.
And you keep your gas receipts and all that stuff. You do that. I don't think the average citizen or the average soldier is going in and looking at the other gas pumps and, oh, here's one that's $60 and mine is only $40. I'm going to scratch out the number. I don't think that happens. But the problem is when that happens for something like Medicare and Medicaid, and it happens over 1 million times every single day, that's where the money starts coming in. And, Congress is not doing its job to cut off the fraud, waste, and abuse. The Doge is coming in saying, we're going to do all this. And then they're like, oh, well, we tried, but there's only so much we can do. And then we're going to cut the people. And then you're cutting the wrong people. That I think is probably the biggest error with Doge was that they were cutting the wrong people instead of getting rid of the people that are 12 to 15 years into the job and they're just waiting out their retirement. They're people that are there for 2 to 3 years that are like, I really want to work. I really want to change the system and make this work. And that's the thing is there's no fix. And what's funny about that is you're giggling about Doge is it sounds like Elon may have gone a little further than he thought and may have gone a little too fast, a little too hard. And I think he might have taken some spotlight away from the president. And the president does not like to be out.
Oh, you don't say. You don't say. You don't say. If only I could have seen it coming. If only we could have seen it coming. So here's the thing.
What did I say? What did I say about Hegseth? Hegseth is still there. Why?
Because he shut up. And I told you, as long as he shuts up and stays out of the limelight, he's fine. Here's the thing.
Right? So there has not been enough blowback off of Hegseth yet.
Right. So
to embarrass
this administration, I told you from the get-go, this administration is going to be the most corrupt, thieving administration in the history of the United States. And right now, I know you're saying, oh, well, you're crazy. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, it really does. You got a president who's enriching himself at every corner, which is cool because he did that the first term and nobody really cared, right? But here's the thing where
But what did you say about that? You
remember? What? Yeah, I told him. I said, if I get my one thing, I'm cool with it.
No. You said you can't steal from people if they're willingly giving you money.
Well, that too, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And as long as the American public is cool with it, like I've never in my life seen a guy publicly say, yeah, I'm having a dinner for 200 are the highest people who invest in the meme coin that I set up to get personal access to me. And I'm doing it on my personal time, so it's whatever, right? But then I'll get into that because that's the later segment. The point I was trying to make is
that, and that's definitely a level of pay for play. I think what Trump is doing, it's much more blatant than it has been. I don't think it's really any different than.
Well, he's brazen because he realizes that nothing can happen. Worst case scenario, I'm out of here in 4 years anyway. So I'm gonna do everything I can. I'm gonna set my family up to make sure we straight because we got to get good. We got these deals, which is cool. I get it.
Which is funny. Like how much do you need for your family to be taken care of?
I mean, that's what grifters do, man.
But they've got generational wealth.
I mean, he has literally set the next 3 or 4 generations of Trumpers up by name.
Oh,
easily.
For
But
sure.
that's not the point I was making. Hold on.
Sorry.
So the point I was making with this bill, right? You can't say, oh, we're bringing in Doge because we got to find the fraud, waste, and abuse, and spending is way too high, and this, that, and the other, and then do the same exact thing. Like spending doesn't come down in this bill; it increases, right? The president, his last administration, added $40 trillion to the debt, right? 40 trillion.
Wait, what?
4, not 40, 4.
Oh, okay.
The tax bill that we're extending. So the tax bill, $4 trillion added to the debt last administration. These are the tax cuts that people want to make permanent. So we're losing revenue, we're cutting social programs, and then we're also not generating any revenue. That's why you see so many Republicans are starting to come out and be like, wait a minute, I'm all about this. And we gonna support you, but hey man, we gotta find some leeway because it's ridiculous the numbers when you look at this thing, right?
Well, let me push back on just one little part of that.
Sure.
The tax income in the United States has been going up, and it's been going up.
The middle class has been carrying the brunt of the taxes for the last 30 years. That hadn't changed any.
Well, but when you say like the money being spent, yes, that the problem is spending. It's not that there's not enough money. It's that it's all about the spending. That's where the problem is. Because it doesn't matter how much, if you bring in $6 trillion in tax revenue, but you're spending $8 trillion, that's a problem. And that's always going to be a problem, and it always will be a problem.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
And that's where I'm with the conservatives. So yeah, it's the spending is the issue. And Republicans,
you can't call them that. They're not that. They're not that anymore.
Well, Republicans will say we are fiscally conservative as long as there's a Democrat in office. As long as there's Joe Biden or Joe Biden's auto pen, they will say, oh, spending's out of control. Spending is out of control. We need to stop this bill because spending is out of control. But the minute you have Trump, or go back even further, go all the way back to Reagan.
Yeah.
Now, Reagan, there were some reasons that I think Reagan, they were trying to do some things with Reagan, that the trickle down stuff and all that. But it doesn't matter when it is. If it's a Democrat in office, Republicans say we're spending too much. And if the Democrats are in office, what they do is they say, we just want to invest. We just want to invest. Invest in what? So it's not investing, it's spending, right? I saw something today that I thought was really interesting about spending. And it was Apple invests annually $55 billion in China every single year. The entire money, the Marshall Plan, spent half of that annually to rebuild Europe over 16 countries. So when you start looking at the money that's being flown around and being invested, and the thing with China is it's not like Apple's going in and just you know randomly building these giant factories and everything and the tech and everything. It's labor. Like Apple could come in and Apple could invest $55 billion in the United States, and they could go into Appalachia and they could give jobs to people that need jobs. Um, and sure, maybe the iPhone would be more expensive. So be it. But we don't do that, and we don't require that. And China is able to say, "Hey, we'll take your $55 billion investment," and that's just from Apple. We're not talking about Nike and everybody else, right? Until the United States gets serious about changing the tax code, about making it possible for companies to stay in America, to modernize our ports. Like our ports, I mean, it's ridiculous. The amount of product and the weight that can be moved in the Chinese ports compared to ours is just because it's all automated. Ours is so far
Yeah.
behind. Um, I know people push for railroads. Railroads is not the way in America because it's not feasible. But the road systems are. But we don't spend money on things that make sense. We don't spend money. Also, we don't spend money the way the taxes are supposed to be spent. And what I mean by that is, if you have a gasoline tax should pay for roads and infrastructure, right? But instead, we put
Should.
gasoline tax, and it just goes right into the normal tax fund, or we put taxes on this or that or the other, and we never remove a tax. Goodness forbid. And then we spend like drunken sailors. And I'm telling you, austerity at some point. Now, again, assuming we ever get to the point where we need austerity, I think that's where it's going to be the big problem. But Trump grifting by doing a meme coin. Look, if you're dumb enough to invest in a meme coin and you lose your shirt, or you have the money and you
Well,
want to get in front of the president, I mean, again, there's not a big difference between they've been doing that for years. It's just
so
instead of doing it over
that
the phone.
part I agree with. So did you see the report about the Asian official who was under investigation?
Was he one of the 200?
He was. He was. And he invested significantly in the Bitcoin, went to the dinner, and guess what happened after the dinner?
He got arrested.
They dropped his case. They've been working on his case since 2021. And magically, after that dinner, that just, I mean, coincidental, it's just timing
What
is,
was the
is a
case?
hell of a thing.
I don't know this one. What was the case for?
Let me go. I got to go look it up. But it was, so he was being investigated by two different agencies. But his case got dropped. Hold on. Give me a sec.
It's bad luck, regardless.
Hmm.
Well, okay. Being extremely generous, it's hey, they're coming after me because of this, this, and this.
Oh, all right. So check it out. So here it goes. So Justin Sand is the guy's name. He was being sued by regulators for fraud and market manipulation. God bless him. Ironically, though, after the dinner, his case got dropped.
Yeah.
But I mean, he did invest a significant money.
How long after how long? Like I'm curious, and I'm not trying to justify this at all.
So,
That's not what I mean.
so
If you go
once
to
he
a
invested,
dinner,
he invested in the coin in January.
sure,
In February, the SEC agreed to a 60-day pause in the suit in
okay,
order to seek a resolution. And just this week, God dang it, boy, I tell you, he is lucky. Just this week.
when was the dinner?
This
When was
weekend.
the dinner?
last Saturday or Sunday. I tell you, boy,
Yeah. I mean,
those
it definitely
coincidences.
looks. Yeah, I mean, it looks bad. It definitely looks bad. I mean, for sure. I'm not going to justify that. I, and I wish. Look, there are so many things with government that happen that you just kind of like. Are you kidding? Like Senator Menendez. It took how long did it take for him to be convicted? And he had gold bars hidden in his freezer that had been given to him as a gift by what was it,
Yeah,
Saudi?
yeah.
So that's the thing. Like I think Trump is at the point, whether it's Trump or whether it's the because I think Trump. Here's the thing. I think Trump is smart enough to have plausible deniability. Right. I don't think Trump is signing off an order that says,
Well,
"Hey, make sure Sen's not getting investigated."
I would hope not. So
I would.
that's not all though. So the top
Oh yeah.
25, coin buyers got a personal VIP White House tour.
Sure.
Then,
Cool.
even though he was on his personal time and not in an official government, capacity or whatever, when he gave the speech, the official symbol of the White House or the president was on the podium. Yeah, you say that, right? You say that, right?
I do
But
say that.
then, but you see the slices of the pie, and then you're like, wait a minute, this is some real messed up pie. Because
The reason I say meh on that is because when Bernie Sanders goes on a fact finding tour to wherever, or if he goes to Denver, he's always Senator Bernie Sanders. I mean, I can see where people might go, hey, it's, but he's always the president. I mean, if you're
he's
doing
always
that,
the president, and it just the I have to go back and I look, right, because I'm old enough to remember one of our presidents wearing a tan suit, right,
that was stupid though.
and
That was
getting absolute crushed by these same senators. Like the senators hadn't changed, who are saying, "Oh, this is cool. We can do this, right? We can absolutely do this. Is
but
absolutely fine."
that was the press going after him more than the others, more than
No,
the
no,
other
no, 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 no.
Republicans.
That was the red team. The red team was up in a tizzy about it. And
About
here's where I think the tipping point is. It's getting shady when you start having the commentators on Fox News arguing with each other about just how shady it is. How much illegality is allowed in the presidency. And
Now
that
that's a
is
good argument.
we're at a point to where it's like, all right, we know this dude is corrupt. We know he's grifting. How much grifting is an allowable amount of grifting? Not whether or not you can grift or not. It's how much are we okay with him stealing in our face? Well, not
So
stealing, just playing
I
in
know.
our face.
So this is the problem that we're at, right? This has been going on, and this is not to justify this. This is to say it has been consistently going down and down and down. And you and I have talked about corrupt politicians for years,
Absolutely.
and so it's not a surprise. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have high integrity people in office, whether it's the ad- head of the administration. And remember, I'm still active duty, so I have to be real careful here. Whether it's the head of the administration or the head of one of the
Lance, they
houses
can't
of
hear you.
Congress. You can't hear me? Oh, really? Is it now? Let me see if That's interesting because I thought I had. Let me change something here. Okay,
But
that's
yeah,
better.
why you working on that? I'll I'll,
Is
I'll
that better
elaborate
though?
on it. How about that? Is that better, Liberty?
Well, now I probably have to talk because I don't know.
Go
Which
ahead.
is funny because I actually have a microphone right here. So I think I put it on auto correct. Oh, better now. So I need to leave the auto correct off. See, KJ, if we just had an engineer for this stuff, if you would get off your butt, and we can pay anybody 10% of our total earnings to be an engineer. That means
Harris.
you're making about 60 cents an episode, maybe still lower than normal. Let me adjust it even higher then. Okay. I think it's funny that you waited all the way until now to say something. Let's see, microphone, USB audio. There we go. Let's see that.
He said you good now.
Better. Okay.
Yep.
Um, where were we? Oh, nobody in Congress is worth the money we're paying for them because they're all a bunch of grifters and they're all full of crap. And as much as Trump is full of crap, so is Bernie Sanders, so is Elizabeth Warren, so is Mitch McConnell, so is John Fetterman, so is.
Welcome to the
Again.
dark side. Welcome to the resistance, Lance. It
I've
only took
been with
3 years,
What?
but I'm so glad to have you. So glad to have you.
I've been to vote them all out for 10 years. I
Yeah,
think
but you've
every single
tended
one
to
of them
give
should be voted out.
no, you've tended to give leeway to the red team, saying, "Oh, well, maybe it's just
Of
that." Now
course.
you're
I'm a
fully
cons-
now you're fully on board.
Okay.
You're on the anarchy train.
So let's be real clear about this. Why I do this, okay? And this goes back to an argument I had with I think my brother 20 years ago.
What?
And and I'm like, I'm a conservative. He goes, yeah, but George W. Bush is an idiot. Blah 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 blah. And I go, so wait, so you think me being a conservative because George Bush is an idiot, I should turn around and vote for Al Gore? Like what? Why in the? To me, yeah, it's absolutely the lesser of two evils. Would I rather have Trump in there than Kamala Harris? Yes, absolutely. Would I rather have a bunch of corrupt Republicans in there than Democrats? Yes, absolutely, because it's not just about one thing or the. To me, Democrats are consistently more wrong than Republicans. Now, don't get me wrong. There's very few Republicans that I go, yeah, I really like him. I really like Mike Lee out of Utah. I think Mike Lee is a conservative. I think Mike Lee, there are times when Mike Lee probably shouldn't be tweeting because he says stuff. But there's times where he's like, this is just me. I'm tweeting. It's like, no, you're always Senator Mike Lee. Always. And that's you need to act like that. I don't know currently what Senator Warnock for Georgia is voting or how he's doing. That's how it should be. I don't need Warnock being on being the lightning rod of everything, right? And I don't even know who the other. I couldn't tell you.
Ossoff.
Lindsey Graham.
Ossoff. It's Ossoff. So it's
I don't know.
Warnock and Ossoff in Georgia. It's Graham and Scott in South Carolina.
Now Scott's been smart because he's kind of gone quiet. You don't see a lot from Scott, but Lindsey Graham. Oh my gosh, Lindsey Graham! Everything
Tim
that's
Scott
got
is the break. Tim Scott is the break in case of racial divide Negro. You're not going to see Tim Scott unless there's racial distress in the country. Then the Republican Party will bring Tim Scott out to come out with some bullshit ass coalition proposal, and then they'll tuck them away until they need them again.
Do you have that video handy that I sent you about Thomas Sowell?
I don't know if it's handy, but I'll try to get it up.
It's on our YouTube. It's on our YouTube IMs, so it shouldn't be too far back. But they were talking to Thomas Sowell about if they had him. I think it was there was a rumor that he was going to be in the Reagan administration, and this is back in the day. And if you know Thomas Sowell,
That's you're talking about the one from Cliff Duncan, right?
Sure. It's the only one I've sent you recently about Thomas Sowell.
Yeah.
Thomas Sowell, if you don't know, he is the smartest, most based economist. Like everything about him is, look, I don't say stuff just to say it. I have the facts. I have the receipts. I know this because there's documentation on it. I'm not going to just spout off on something, but play that video. I think when you bring up somebody like Scott, I think it's really instructive to see what Thomas Sowell good.
No,
Thomas Sowell
I,
very
I
good.
actually enjoy Thomas Sowell a lot. I don't agree with him all the time. I think
Fair enough.
his view is a little skewed, especially the older and detached away from the ground level he was. But no, I think for the most part, Sowell he's like, he's founded in doctrine and theory. How about that?
Well, Sowell
And he's pretty
Sowell
good.
to me Sowell is an actual intellectual
Yeah,
who
absolutely.
puts his thinking into practice.
Exactly.
You can be an intellectual and just spout like Krugman. I think that's what Krugman is. Krugman wins the Nobel Prize in economy, and then he goes on to the New York Times as a columnist, and he's talking about everything except economics. And it's like, dude, you don't just because you won the Nobel Prize in economics doesn't mean you should be talking about race relations or about certain things that have nothing to do with economics. So, do you have that there?
Yeah, I'm getting it pulled up now.
And then now, just fair warning, while he's doing this again, we're going to cut off at the 60-second mark, 60-minute mark. We're going to keep going, but for our CTR, that's the cutoff for CTR. So we'll do a quick pause for CTR, and then we'll just keep chatting for however long we decide to go after that. But once we get that, so this will probably take us right about to the minute or to the hour mark. That's twice I just said minute mark.
Did you? All right, I'm gonna try to do
Yeah.
this without getting cut out because for whatever reason we are not.
As long as
Hold
the
on.
video's less than 3 minutes.
No, we might have to queue something up and come back to it because it is not.
Well, so let's just keep talking then for a minute. So
Yeah,
because you brought up Tim Scott, and I think
disappointing.
that's one
Go
thing
ahead.
that Republic. Do you want to play it?
No. I said go ahead. Tim Scott is a disappointment. That's all I was saying.
Well, I think that one of the mistakes that the Republicans have is they are so worried about looking the wrong way, or it's weird. It's a reverse racial thing. Like, oh, we have if it's anything racial, we have to have Tim Scott talk because if it's somebody else, then we're going to be accused of racism. It's like it's still racism if you're trotting out Tim Scott only because he's black to discuss something. Like it bothers me when people say men can't talk about women's issues because they're not women or whatever it is. I may not understand all of women's issues, but there's things that affect my wife. There's things that affect my daughters. So I think I have a right to talk about those things. And I think it's pandering when you say the Republicans do this. Well, we have something, so we're going to put Tim Scott out in front, and they do it for other things too. Like if it's something with the Cuba issue, whenever a Cuba issue came up, they get Rubio, and they'd be like, "Hey, Rubio, come," or Ted Cruz, "Hey, come on up." So I do think that Republicans would be better served to push for candidates that are a little more diverse, and I will say DEI. If you want to call it diversity of skin, mainly because it's just experience. Like you can have conservatives that have different color skin just because it's a different experience. You and I have talked about this. It doesn't matter the color of our skin. You grew up in a different place than I did, so we just have different experiences. Like right now, you have a different experience just walking down the street than I do. And that's fair. I don't think there's anything wrong with that when people say, "Well, I don't see color." It's like, how can you not? If you just look at the two of us, there are some very distinct differences.
There's Chat GPT would argue otherwise, but yeah, we're distinct.
My gosh, I could tell you a story about what I did with Grok and the whole trans.
Okay, hold on. So we're gonna pick that up here in 30 seconds. Let's go ahead and sign off. All right, for you guys that are watching us on CTR Network, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, you can catch us on our YouTube platform, holler at us on Twitch or on the Facebook stream. But we got to say goodbye to you on Roku, man. So we will see you guys next week. Thank you for watching. Tell a friend to tell a friend. We'll see you guys next week. And we're back. All right, cool. So it's not allowing me to share the screen because I'm remote. So I can send you the link and possibly get you to share it, but for whatever reason, this remote system is not allowing me to share the screen.
It's not that big of it. Basically, it was just Thomas Sowell. They asked Thomas Sowell.
Let me see if I can play the audio real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, okay.
Because of some of the views that you take, which are considered by the professional civil rights leaders who are traditional Democrats, they say that you are insensitive, and they're concerned that if you become a prominent person in the Reagan administration, that you will harm Black people. And one NAACP official is quoted as saying the following, quote, "He," referring to you, "would play the same kind of role which historically the House played for the plantation owners. He could mete out the straight discipline, no matter how inhumanely administered. It would be presumed more acceptable because the hands of the disciplinarian are Black," end of quote.
This kind of contemptible business is typical of what you find among people who have no arguments, no facts, no evidence, and who simply have to defend themselves in positions they've taken. I think the NAACP itself is much more in the image of the House, that they are simply the end of the civil rights of the liberal white establishment. They follow wherever the head leads. And if that leads them to destroy opportunities for Blacks, they do it because that keeps them in with the white philanthropists who support them, the white media who back them up, the editorial columns and elsewhere. It's typical of the kind of garbage to which they're reduced by the lack of anything better that they can offer.
Okay, so that's it. That's the audio. I don't know. Were you able to hear it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And if you're wondering that, I'm not going to say what the beep for the House blank was. You can figure that one. But my favorite is after he asked the question, he goes, "That's bullshit."
So
that was the beep. That's bullshit.
Listen, that was awesome. And I will tell you, I will tell you. So I remember, this is going to sound really weird, but I remember thinking about the timeline of Thomas Sowell and thinking to myself, I think he was a consequence of your boy Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas did so much damage to the reputation of Black people when Thomas Sowell came around, who was actually a intellectual who would be by the book. They were so afraid of having another Clarence Thomas on an administration. It punished, or it impacted Sewell negatively. And I don't think he ever got over that hurt. Because if you go back and look, they were warring for a minute. Like Sewell was beefing for a minute with the legacy advocacy agencies, because that was the tail end of the NAACP's national power or whatever, and being able to flex their muscle. The 80s was. That was right when Jesse Jackson and all those guys in Sharpton was starting to phase out. Yeah, he's been around a lot longer than some. But what I'm saying is when Clarence Thomas got elected to the Supreme Court, right? When he replaced Thurgood Marshall, he did such irreparable damage to the Black community in their eyes, in the eyes of the civil liberties, the legacy agencies. When Thomas Sowell finally rose to prominence and was given an opportunity in the 80s, they was like, nah. We already seen what y'all intellectual types do. We're not gonna let it happen again. I don't think Sewell got over it.
I don't. No. I don't think so, because Sewell radar before that anyway. And I mean, Clarence Thomas, right from go, was put in as a token, right? The Jesse Jackson and them. He's just a token. He's not really worthy. They roll out Anita Hill and the whole.
Well, even Thurgood Marshall said the same thing. Even Thurgood Marshall said as much as he was retiring. He was like, "Yo, this ain't the guy."
Well, and that's my point, though. It didn't matter. It wouldn't have mattered who it was. I really don't think so, because if you had any conservative African American in that position, they would have gone after him no matter who it was.
Oh yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Sowell was he just happened to be the next guy up in prominence on the conservative wing, who took the brunt of everything that Clarence Thomas was allowed to slide with.
Well, but Clarence Thomas wasn't really. I mean, Clarence Thomas was not really a public person before he was nominated, right? Like I could like seriously.
No. He wasn't. No, he wasn't. He wasn't. It just I don't really know.
So what I mean is, well, so any of these guys, any of these people for SCOTUS, right? SCOTUS is a very different kind of thing. It doesn't matter if it's Amy Cohen Barrett, if it's Ketanji Brown, if it's Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sotomayor, any of them. Like these are not names of people that you know. They're not in the spotlight. So suddenly they go from just kind of a unknown district court person who suddenly they're like the flavor of the week, where we're digging into their garbage can and every little detail of their lives, and people come out and say 50 years ago I was at a party and he raped me, and okay.
Well, the story behind Thomas, and Liberty, I saw your question. I'm gonna get back to that too in a sec. So the story behind Clarence Thomas is Thurgood Marshall was getting ready to sunset out, and he had given a list of, I think it was 5 or so black federal justices where he was like, hey, these are really good justices. POTUS didn't take that in consideration at all and was like, hey man, basically thank you but no thank you, I got a guy, right? And he pulls Clarence Thomas up, and everybody on the radar was like, this is the guy you want? He was like, yeah, he's black, it works. And they was like, nah, not really. So even from the jump, Clarence Thomas had, and I think I have to believe, man, that some of that windfall, they carry grudges, right? People are human, right? So because Clarence Thomas, believe it or not, Clarence Thomas wasn't radical, but he was very much involved in the civil rights movement, right? Like he was French, Black Power. Got into college, didn't really like the militant nature that they was taking, so he kind of fell back off of it. But he still held very pro Black Power beliefs up until he got the SCOTUS. And once he got the SCOTUS and was getting all that pushback and kickback, he was like, all right, well, shit. If you want a villain, I'll be your villain. And ever since then, CT he's been on one. And some people are like that, man. They hold grudges forever.
Well, okay, so you could also look at it like this. Not a single black man has played baseball in the 60, 70, 80 years of the history of professional baseball, right? So Branch Rickey, he's like, I want to break the color barrier. I think that this is ridiculous. I think we need to have the best athletes. And as the Dodgers, we are going to do what's right, because Branch Rickey was, in those terms, he was absolutely radical. I don't think it was just about money. I think it was.
Oh yeah.
I think he was a legitimate, like radical, fair-minded man, and so he goes and he calls Jackie Robinson in. He says, "All right, Jackie, look, I know you're good enough to play. Okay, that's not the issue. What I need somebody who's going to be the face of as weird as it sounds, the face of the black man to America."
No, that's
right?
Exactly what it is. It's what it is. They need a face.
Yeah.
They need a face.
And I need somebody who is going to stand with a smile on his face while they are spitting at him. I need somebody who will shake hands while they're calling him the worst possible racial slur that you could, who is not going to react. And Jackie said, I got you, right? And that's why he began. So I wonder if there was a part of the Reagan team that went to Clarence Thomas and basically said, and I don't know,
No,
it wouldn't.
no,
You don't think that conversation
no,
happened?
no. Clarence, all right. You've seen the Django Unchained, right? You've
Of course.
seen that movie. Great movie.
Sure.
Great movie. What was the butler's name played by Samuel L. Jackson?
Oh, I don't remember his name. I knew it was Samuel L. Jackson, but I don't remember his name. It's been a couple years since I've seen it. Do you remember?
My point is that character is Clarence Thomas, and that is why he was chosen.
Oh, was his name Clarence?
I think it was something. I got to go look. But I don't think they did it on purpose. But what I'm telling you, for people to get that vision, that character is everything that Clarence Thomas is to the SCOTUS.
Okay. Do you think, though? Let me ask you this: do you think there are Uncle Rufuses in the world?
Absolutely. Are you saying shitting me? Yeah.
No. Right. So it's not like if you don't know what we're talking about from the Boondocks, Uncle Rufus is the whitest. How do you describe him? Uncle Rufus is the black character who absolutely says the most vile things against black people, and he's black, right?
He is.
And
Well,
so,
he got revigiligo. Stephen was his name. Stephen,
oh
the character.
yeah, but Uncle Rufus was black. I mean,
Yeah.
the coloring that they used for him. It's not like he was turning into the Michael Jackson.
No. He absolutely. Well, so you got to understand, man. There's a psychology, right, of black culture, right, where you've had these people like the Stephen character in the Django Unchained, who, no matter the atrocities be facing the rest of the populace, right? As long as they're good, they can give two shits about everybody else. And it's not necessarily a black thing, it's just more prominent in the black community. I don't know why. It's just maybe it's just the way it's
Well,
set up.
but I think you're starting to see it in the white community, especially with white women.
Absolutely.
The white women who say, "I won't date anybody I would never date a white man. I will only date black men because white men have done all the damage in the world." Blah blah blah. And it's like, really? Like, I mean, why wouldn't you just date somebody because you like them? I mean, call me crazy, but yeah, there's absolutely self-hating of everybody. Like there's misogynistic women. There are men who hate other men. There are black people who hate blacks, whites who hate whites. And yeah, it's interesting. I was just wondering, I don't know with Thomas, because you and I have talked about this, right? I don't know how much effect with Thomas that Sowell had, because I think Sowell kind of came in and he said everything I've read from Sowell, and I think he has said this himself in his own books. I try to stay away from. I'm completely kind of. I'm trying to sum up what I believe he is. I think with Thomas Sowell is he's kind of like, I don't share a lot of my own opinions. I try to look at the data. I try to look at what's provable and what's not provable, and then I try to present it in a way that my thoughts and ideas are backed up with actual fact. I don't just come out and say I like I really like the blue sky and blue is the best. He says the sky is blue because the way the water reflects off of the atmosphere and reflects those, and so the sky is blue because of that. As far as like whether I like a blue sky or not is irrelevant. The sky is blue, and therefore that's the thing about Thomas Sowell. I think he kind of does, and I don't think Thomas Sowell, realistically, it probably doesn't matter to him that he's black, just in terms of he doesn't write. I've never seen Thomas Sowell ever come out and be like, say something about race and say, "Oh, I know this because I'm black." It's look,
Right.
this is what the data says. This is the information.
I'm gonna put an image in your head.
Sure, sure.
On the left side, you have Clarence Thomas. On the right side, you got Colin Powell, right? For everything we don't want a black conservative to be in Clarence Thomas, Colin Powell was everything we wanted a black conservative to be. That makes sense?
Except being a conservative.
Well,
a black Republican, yes, not a
right.
conservative. Okay.
In the middle, you have Thomas Sowell.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thomas Sowell truly is a conservative.
That's what I said. In the middle. So you have extreme conservatism, anti-black rhetoric with Clarence Thomas. On the far right, you have modern conservatism, more moderate beliefs with Colin Powell.
I see what you're
In
saying.
the middle, you have Thomas Sowell, who he can go either way depending on the data, but he's going to be objective.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's fair.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope that answers
just where you were saying right and left was getting me, because Clarence Thomas being on the left never makes sense.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. I had to go. I had to go.
Well, and I think that's the interesting thing is, I think if Colin Powell had what? Oh.
There you got it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Colin Powell.
I don't know, man. I'm not really well versed in white conservatism like that, my brother.
If Colin Powell had decided to run for president in 96, I think
against Clinton?
Against Clinton, because that was when Clinton was coming in, and the Republicans went with Bob Dole.
Absolutely. I think he absolutely smashes Clinton, because Clinton was riding on the black vote. You cannot tell me you got a highly decorated black war hero to put against him. There is no way Clinton wins that. This is Clinton coming right off the impeachment, before he was able to balance the economy. He was at his low point.
And it was Schwarzkopf coming out and basically saying, "Hey, Colin Powell was my right hand man. It did everything. I don't win."
Exactly.
So for some reason,
Bob Dole was a heaven sent gift to the Democrats.
Oh yeah, he was. For whatever reason, that was the. Yeah, his wife probably does better overall than Bob Dole did. Bob Dole was one of those, whatever the Republican version of Tammany Hall is. He was he was the establishment pick.
Yeah.
And there probably were enough Republicans. Now again, I don't think Republicans care about, too young to remember. I was in my 20s when that happened. I'm not too young to remember that. But I think that you had a situation where Powell didn't want to go through that, right? I think Powell was kind of like, look, I've done my time. I'm a soldier. I just want to be a soldier. I will tell you, though. I'll tell you this, though. Probably the biggest disappointment I had of Colin Powell is when he came out in 2007, the 2008 election, and he supported Barack Obama over John McCain. And here's why. It's because of what he said. Now, he came out and he said, I am supporting Barack Obama's presidency because John McCain has run a mean campaign. It's been a very mean campaign. And that's why I'm voting for him. And Barack Obama, this will be historic. What made it historic? Like, again, if Colin Powell had come out and said, Barack Obama's black, he's going to be the first black president. I'm going to vote for him because I'm black. I would have been like, okay.
But he said that. He said it without saying it. It's just like people who say they were voting for the economy this election cycle. Okay, the economy. Gotcha. Cool. The economy.
I guess if you want to.
Yeah. You vote for you say it without saying
You've even said Harris was not ready for prime time. I don't think it was.
She was absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
She was not ready.
If you had a white male if that campaign is run the same way with the same vibe and everything else, because you and I have talked about this, just anything you can do
the loss
to make yourself look bad, she did.
The loss was inevitable. What would have changed would be how they lost. You got to keep in mind the Republicans won every swing state in dominating fashion. There is no way in hell that happens with the Anglo-Saxon male. They don't. It's close. The Democrats have a fighting chance. If they ran Shapiro, if they had ran the boy out of Kentucky, if they'd have ran who's the other guy? I can't remember the other guy. Everyone except
hold on. But what I'm saying is
we're
talking a little bit different here. You're saying if Shapiro had run, it's closer. Maybe he even wins. He maybe wins Pennsylvania. What I'm saying is if Shapiro runs, but he goes out and says the same things that Harris said and acted the same way Harris did, he still gets the floor mopped with him because she went out and her death knell was this. And I think everybody kind of agrees. This was.
I'll clear it up for you in a minute, Liberty.
When Harris went on The View, and they said
absolutely killed. That absolutely killed her.
That was it. So if Shapiro, okay, so if Ken Harris instead of Kamala Harris went on, if Ken Harris went, Ken's about the widest name we can use, right? I can't think of a wider name than Ken. Are there any black guys named Ken? I mean, like by definition, Barbie and Ken. Like Ken is the white guy. If Ken Harris goes on to The View and they say, you know, with all the things that you've had over the past 4 years and you know some of the challenges that this administration's had, is there anything you would have done differently? No, I really can't think of anything. It didn't matter that it was Kamala. It mattered what the answer was, and it was.
Here's the nuance to that.
Just real quick though.
Sure.
And Trump kind of got. I think this is one of the reasons Trump lost to Biden in 2019 because Trump did the same thing. Trump went on. You remember Trump went on to. I don't think it was The View, but he had an interview with. Could have been Katie Couric or somebody, and they said, "What would you have changed differently over the past 4 years?" And he was like, "Nothing. It's been great. I wouldn't have changed a single thing." And it's that same. You can't have somebody who is unwilling in any political. I don't care who it is. You can't have them come in and say, "The world has changed. The situation has changed." But I am not going to change. Like you want somebody who will come in and say, "Well, yeah." So Mitt Romney got killed for flip flopping, and that's why they won't do it anymore.
Right, but hold on a second. The reason why that doesn't work is because she was beholden to Biden as a favor, right? Biden picked her specifically for 2 reasons. You remember those 2 reasons Biden picked her?
Loyalty as a VP.
No. I'm talking about before the very first time he picked her as the VP. What was his 2 criteria as a VP?
Because she was a black woman. She was black and she was a woman.
So the payback for that, when he dropped out of the race was, "Yo, kid, you're tied to me. Don't talk bad about me." So she was beholden to that either way. What I'm saying is, if any other person outside of being in that position would have ran, they wouldn't have been held to those same standards. They wouldn't have had that same time.
No, I disagree with that. Here's why. Okay. And I understand you're beholden to, you're saying, look, I'm on his coattails. I'm on his coattails. He brought me in to be his VP. I'm his number one cheerleader, right?
Yeah. Loyal to a fault.
But you can be a number one cheerleader and say, yeah, you know what? As strong as we were on the border, I think there's some things we could have done on the border that would have made it a little more palatable. I think even if we had just made the entrance, these people that are coming in, I still believe that President Biden made the right choice. I think bringing people in, letting them leave Venezuela and coming and being here and seeking the American dream. I just think we didn't maybe explain it. I actually don't think that's the president's fault. I think that as an administration, we didn't do the things we needed to do. So I think our messaging could, and even me, I probably could have been better at that. I probably should have stepped up sooner and said, hey, you know what? I think that what President Biden doing is wonderful, and I think it's great. And I wasn't as good. There's ways to do it.
So,
but to come on and go, nope, I can't think of nothing.
Hold on. As a black woman running in that position, she would have got absolutely crushed, no matter what answer she gave. First and foremost. Secondly, they had a game plan. It was 100 days, and their best path to win was, hey, do not deviate from Biden no matter what. This has been proven since after the election. That was their campaign, and you're finally starting to see Democratic strategists come out and be like, yeah, we dropped the ball on that. Kamala Harris.
I disagree with you. I disagree with one part of that, though. Her getting crushed wouldn't have mattered. The mainstream media, the media for her was, I mean, all kinds of carrying water, just like they did for Biden, as Biden, the corpse of Biden has shown. But luckily, we have reporters like Jake Tapper who are going to come out and tell us what really happened with Biden. And I think that you would have had this. She would have gotten killed by Hannity. She would have gotten killed by the right, by the conservatives. Absolutely. You would have had Steve Crowder going on.
Anyway, remember, she didn't do an interview till what, 50, 60 days in? She just, at the end of the day,
That's
wasn't
how bad
ready.
she was, though.
But that's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, she wasn't ready to carry the ticket, and they forced a square peg into a round hole, and it just didn't fit.
Right,
and it's not. So here's the thing, Liberty, and I gotta address. So here's the thing: when it comes to the race card, I have an issue with that because people always claim that there's a race card being played when in actuality there's no race card being played. She is a black woman. There are people who flat out said, hey, one, I would never vote for a woman, right? You had a whole entire evangelical block who said no matter what she does, they will not support her because the woman can't be the head of a country. This is same reason they didn't vote for Hillary, same reason they didn't vote for Kamala. It's just what it is. I mean, we can talk about. I mean, we can
had
talk
a whole block.
It's just what it is, man.
But for every okay, so the evangelical block that said we are not going for a woman because a woman belongs in the kitchen. You also had a huge block of quote unquote college educated white women who said, well, I am absolutely going to vote for Kamala Harris
and turned around.
She's a woman.
And turned around and voted for Trump in private, like they always do. White women are the most diabolical voting bloc in the history of mankind because they have consistently.
Let's call it unreliable. Let's not say diabolical. Let's say unreliable.
Unreliable. They are consistently the biggest lying bloc. They will say whatever sounds great. Liberty, everybody's bad. Eventually you'll catch on to that, but I'll get to that too. They have been statistically proven no matter what, they'll come on and they will say whatever they want to say. And then hands down, 9 times out of 10, they vote whatever way their husband votes is the way they vote, and that there's nothing wrong with that. It's
I
just
never saw. You and I looked that up, and college educated white women did break slightly for Harris, right? But isn't that what it was? It wasn't by a lot, but I don't
it
think
was
we ever
60.
had a
It was
breakdown.
60-40. It was 60-40 Trump.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah,
I don't think we
it
had a
was
breakdown as far as single
the
women. I wonder,
the only
did we ever
Democrat. The
see
only
that?
no. The only
We
demographics
only saw
that
white women, not college
right.
educated
Yeah,
women.
it wasn't broken down like that. I think the only demographic she won handedly was black women, 92%. She got black men at like 86 or 84, somewhere around there,
I think it was
which is significant, right? Because that
for
black
Trump to
vote
get
is
almost 20%. Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. That black vote is a
Yeah.
huge guaranteed block for the Democrats. So even losing those 5 points on black men absolutely crushed them because they weren't making it up anywhere else. You saw that in Pennsylvania with the huge immigrant population voting for Trump overwhelmingly. It just is what it is. Now, I like Nikki too. I was a Nikki supporter. I was disappointed when she dropped out. I think she was probably one of the better candidates this cycle. I
tell you what, with Nikki Haley, I started off as a big Nikki Haley fan, but the more she came out, more with her policies, the less of a fan I became. I still think, well, it's going to be interesting because again, JD Vance, it'll be interesting to see what he does over the next 3 years. I still think that Greg Abbott would be a great choice coming out of Texas. The governor out of Texas. Well, Mexico just voted for a woman president, and she's also a Jewish Marxist, which is really interesting. Canada, yeah.
That's like saying America voted for a black president, so there's no more racism.
Well, I think liberties.
Two things can be true at the same time. You can vote for a woman. You can vote for a woman, and you can also be extremely anti-woman at the same time.
Well, I think it comes down to who's running in what party, right?
Right.
Because
you'll never hear me say Kamala Harris was the right candidate for that election. She was a bad candidate put in a horrible position, and she was going to lose either way. It's just in the manner in which she lost, which was really upsetting. Not upsetting.
What do you think the chances are that Kamala Harris comes out of the primaries as the Democratic nominee in 3.5 years?
It depends on which Kamala you get.
There's only one, so
no. So there's one, but there's different personalities. There's just like Trump in 2020. What Trump in 2016 is not Trump in 2024, right? Those are two completely different candidates. If Kamala is
for pretty obvious reasons, though.
Well, that too. But if Kamala is not handcuffed and beholden to the Democratic Party, and you're able to actually see what she believes and speak for herself, I think she stands a chance. I think it'll be uphill because, I think it'll be uphill, but she stands a chance. You have a couple of contenders who would possibly make some noise, but the machine is so strong, man, that they don't stand a chance.
Do you think with her that she is the I don't know how to put this, that she's automatically the next in line and the Democratic machine is going to say, well, she was next in line, but she really didn't get a good chance because it was only 100 days? Or do you think the machine's going to say she already had her chance? We're going to go to the next.
No. If she wins the primary, she will have to literally earn it. Like there is no way they're going to hand it to her. She will literally have to fight.
I don't think they're going to do a Clinton. I don't think they're going to do a 2015 Clinton where they hand it to her. I think it's going to be wide open.
And then,
but I guess my question is: do you think she can? Because just you. This is just opinion. This is not. I'm not 4 years from now. I'm not going to be like, oh, but
Yeah,
you
no,
said.
you're
I'm
good.
just curious what you
No,
think
you're
right
good.
now. Is she going to have? Is she legitimately? Do you think she has an actual legitimate chance? I don't. I think she's. I think no matter what she does over the next 3.5 years, just personality wise, um, I don't think she's going to be the pick. I think she might want. This is a woman who won a grand total of 0 votes in 2020 running as a senator from the state of California with a resume that you like to point out was you think it's a very impressive resume, and that's
Yeah,
fine. I'm not, and she got exactly 0 delegates. So
she
do you
got
think
crushed.
this is? Do you think that she in 2008 simply because she's had 4 years as the vice president? I'm curious. Just I don't know. I don't think I don't see her coming out of. She will absolutely have to run like anybody else. I agree with you
Yeah,
on that. I don't
absolutely.
think. Um, I just don't. I think. I think she's going to get to the point where they do the polling and all that. Like right now, when they ask Democrats, "Who do you want to run?" Like she's still one of the 3 or 4
Yeah,
names.
she's.
It's
I think.
it's a
Yeah, she's top
yeah
2 or top 3. I think right now.
yeah. She's still viable by name, right?
Yeah.
But I think that in a couple years, I think that they're going to move on. I think the Democrats are going to move on from her. I don't think she's going to. Now, will she still end up running? Sure, but I think the threat there is if she runs and she would. I think she would literally have to win the first state to have any chance. And I don't
I'll
know.
tell
Who
you.
knows? The way they do
I'll,
stuff now, who
yeah,
knows what the first
I'll
state's
tell
even
you
going to
the
be?
primaries, the midterms are going to be telling, right?
Really?
Because you've seen her slowly start to peek her head out and basically dip her toe in the political water, right? She's came out, she's given a couple of speeches, she's taken a couple of barbs, and essentially what her theme has been was, hey, I'm not saying I told you so, but I told you so. So the midterms are going to be really telling because she's going to have the opportunity to come out and stump for some of these races. Now, if they use her in some of these contested races and that puts the Democrat over, then she becomes more viable as a candidate. But if the Democrats don't use her for the midterms, then we've already known that the party has already started to switch away from her.
The reason, well, it could. It could. I think the midterms next year are going to be all about Trump. I think it's 100% about Trump.
Oh
If
yeah,
the economy,
absolutely.
yeah. So I don't think her coming out and going to the fourth district of Utah or Colorado. Let's say we always go. We use New Mexico a lot, right? I don't think her showing up in a tight race in the fourth district of New Mexico that is a coin flip. I don't think her showing up and campaigning does anything.
Well,
Ironically, I think in 2 years, well, 18 months. Oh my gosh, it's only 18 months. I think in 18 months. Meanwhile, you could have Trump show up in the fourth district, and he's going to move the needle more than Harris ever dreams of, for good and bad, because he'll show up and he'll push those that support him, and they'll show up, and those that absolutely hate him, and they'll show
yep.
up. I just don't think Harris has the cachet. I don't see it with her.
No,
But
she does
I could be
not. Like
wrong.
right now, right now, she does not. Can she
I
build
don't
it?
think she's
Absolutely.
going to.
So here's the thing, right? And I'll give you a
Maybe
prime
I
example.
don't think so, but
Well, no, I'll give
we'll
you a
see.
prime
Yeah,
example. We go back to Biden. Biden was dead in the water. Remember, I tell you this all the time. Biden was dead in the water
Clyburn. Yeah,
until Clyburn came out, and that's all it took.
I still don't think that's what it was though.
Mhm.
I think it was the machine. I think the machine came out and said it needs to be Biden because the way that's not to say that the machine didn't go to Clyburn and say, "Hey, we need you to step up." And
no, that's exactly what they did. That's exactly
right.
they went to the CBC and they was like, "Yo,
Yep.
Biden's our guy. We're counting on you guys to tell
Get behind
everybody
us
that Biden's our
yes.
guy." And
Because
the
they were
machine did
so
what it did.
scared of Bernie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Because
I think the same thing will happen if nobody viable steps up before the midterms and places themselves at the front of the ticket. They're gonna default automatically because they're gonna start getting cold feet. You have to have somebody. You have to start propping somebody up. You can't do it the
I
year of.
guess
It's too late.
I think that if you have somebody who, okay, Republican hat off. I'm gonna try to put my Democrat hat on. It okay. I'm gonna go with my hold on my devil's advocate hat. That fits much better.
There you go. Yeah.
Devil's advocate. If I'm a Democrat, I'm not worried right now who is running. The next election, whether it's a blue wave, whether it's a blue trickle, whether it's a red trickle, whether it's a red wave, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking and saying, who is out there that is articulate, that has experience, and that we can look at that has more positives than negatives, that isn't going to get slammed by those evil Republicans, right? And the reason I say that is somebody like AOC. AOC is going to get killed by Republicans, right?
Oh,
Because of how many of her pretty far left, and I think if AOC was honest with the American people, she'd say, "Yep, I'm a socialist. Get over it," right? But socialist still has kind of that evil connotation.
sure.
I think that as a Democrat, I'd be saying, I want somebody who has executive experience. I want somebody who is going to be a strong Democrat, who is not a crazy leftist, because I'm a working class Democrat. I want somebody who is going to come back and be a pro union guy, who is going to be inclusive in terms of the people that make up the Democrat Party, who's not going to do some of the crazy stuff with the transgender, who's not even gonna talk about the crazy stuff, right? I don't care what they believe about that stuff. I want somebody who's going to fight for wages, for unions, for blue collar jobs, for traditional democratic values, for the rights of rights for women, um, the Civil Rights Act. I
I
want
will.
somebody who is going to remind me of.
I have a
I
dark
I
horse.
don't know.
I have a dark horse. And
Oh,
if he decides to run, fucking forget it. It is Obama 2.0. Westmore out of Maryland, the governor. That dude
he
has
doesn't
been
have the name right. I don't even. I don't
he
even
does
know who that
not,
is.
yeah. He does not now. He does not now. But I am telling you, that whatever day this is on May 25th, 2025, if we look back at the midterms and you see this guy in the primaries, be very afraid because that dude is a
Westmoreland, is that his name? Westmoreland.
Westmore
Westmore.
more
Okay.
out of he's the governor of Maryland. That
Without
is
knowing who he is, can I just I'm going to tell you right now, as a Republican, how I attack Westmore, Governor Westmore,
sure.
without knowing who the guy is. I cannot tell you if the guy is white or black.
Mm-hmm.
I'm I will go after him with one word. Baltimore. I'm going to stick
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore stink all
Sure.
over him and say, if he can't work with the mayor to fix Baltimore, which is clearly, I don't know. Hey, he said is he a good black? Is Westmore black?
Westmore is black.
Okay. So
there's no good blacks any more than they're good whites. Like he's just a good dude.
He just happens to be black, and you like him, and you like his policies, and that's fine.
He is
where I
a
have
legit
no problems.
military veteran. He's a
Okay.
colonel in the National Guard.
Okay.
Dude has been forefront on all the political issues, not outwardly, but behind the scenes, moving and shaking for a while. I want to say the last 6 or 7 years, at least. When I tell you it's gonna be between my three picks are Moore out of Maryland. If I was putting a machine together, it would be Bashir out of Kentucky, and it would be Shapiro out of Pennsylvania. So out of those three men, one of them will be my P, and the other one will be my VP. And you run that ticket. That ticket stands strong against any Republican matchup you put together.
Tell me what's Bashir's background in Kentucky? Okay, I hate to say it like this. Is he white or black?
Who, Bashir?
He's white, I assume. Yeah.
Yeah, Bashir's out of Kentucky. Yeah.
Okay, so here's where I'm gonna say. I think Shapiro.
I hate to say it like this. Is he white or black?
Well, I mean, like really, it doesn't matter to me, but I think Shapiro's biggest problem is gonna be where Israel and Palestine is.
Yeah,
because I will flat out say right now, this whole idea of anti-Semitism in the GOP, that's dead. Democrats own anti-Semitism at this point.
Yeah.
All right. So I think Shapiro's tough. Now, if you say there's a combination between Westmore, is his name Wes Moore, or is his last name?
His last name is Moore, Moor.
Westmore.
First name is Wes.
Oh, okay. I was thinking like Westmoreland, like Westmore, like that's his. Okay, Westmore. Okay, so Governor Moore.
Yep.
I think we're past. Honestly, in America, I think we're past the point where it really does matter that much if he's white or black, or if Bashir is white or black.
That is his name. Oh my God, Wesley Watende Amari Moore.
Okay, own it, man. Hey, own it. So Moore, I don't think it matters that much white or black. I think it's going to matter again with policies in Baltimore. I think that's going to be the tough thing to overcome. But with the National Guard stuff, and again, it doesn't. This is not applying to Moore. But my first thought when you said, well, he's National Guard, so was DeSantis.
No, he's right? National Guard now. He was active and retired.
Well, but what I mean is it doesn't matter anymore. Like DeSantis got no play because of what he did in the military, because he came off as just kind of, I don't even know.
DeSantis is a horrible governor, though. Like DeSantis, like for all
he's loved in Florida.
He is a horrible governor, though.
He gets stuff done in Florida. I don't agree with that assessment. I think he is pushing.
I mean, just because you're doing stuff doesn't mean it's good. I mean,
but he's pushing his policy, and he's doing what he thinks should be done. And so, getting stuff done in the states, that for Republicans to see Florida and go, look, DeSantis is more of a conservative than Trump, and so if you have DeSantis, I think DeSantis's problem was kind of like the Scott Walker problem. Was he got bumped. He got pushed up as here's this potential guy who's going to come in, and he does a good job with his state, blah blah blah. And then he started speaking. It was kind of like, this dude, like really? Yeah. That's it. It's Dukakis when he ran. It like this guy in the tank with the oversized helmet looked like a retard. Oh, I'm sorry, we can't say retard anymore. Look dumb. You have to avoid those kind like. And DeSantis, it was with those stupid looking rubber boots. Like there was nothing wrong with him wearing the boots, but it looked dumb. Like realistically, nobody said to him. Somebody said to him, "Hey, you should put these on. It'll make you look like you're out working." And nobody went, "No, dude, no, not the. They're white galoshes, man. Like really? If you put those on a black, it's fine. Like that's not even an issue, right?" Listen. So it's so far out though, but I don't think Harris. I don't think Harris is going to be viable. I think you're going to have on the Democratic side. I do think you're going to have a fight for the spirit of the Democratic side, which is going to
Absolutely.
be: are we going to be left, or are we going to be really left? And that's going to be interesting to see where that turns out. On the Republican side, I think most conservatives agree with this: is we're never going to have a conservative president. We're just not. And so we have to have the most conservative. Have to hold our nose because we know Trump's not there's not a conservative out there that says, "Oh, Trump's conservative." Trump's not a conservative. He has been. He's never pretended to be. Trump is a Republican who has taken some positions that happen to that are Republican positions, but the Republican Party has basically gone to what the Democrat of the '60s party was. Everything in America has moved left. The Democratic Party has moved very far left, up to the point of socialism. The Republican Party has moved from conservatism to basically centrist at best. And so I don't think there is a conservative out there like Mike Lee, as conservative as Mike Lee is. There's no way in heck Mike Lee is ever going to be the nominee.
Oh,
Ted
nowhere
Cruz,
close.
we saw what happened with Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz might be about as conservative as we're going to get. And I think what you would see if Ted Cruz or Mike Lee were to be the
Oh,
nominee,
Lindsey Graham.
I think they'd run to the middle. They would run to the middle like everybody does. Just like AOC, if she became the nominee, we all know AOC is a pretty far left liberal, and she would run to the middle and try to get the middle class. And then it's like I do wonder though, what's going to happen? Are we going to have something happen? I don't think so. I just don't think the system is set up that way. What we probably should be looking at is what happened in England and looking at a real reform party that basically wipes out the Republicans.
Well, you've had it twice now, and the
The MAGA
evolution.
party.
Well,
The
that
MAGA party was one.
before then, you had the Tea Party. They were just the infant stage of the MAGA party.
The Tea Party was actually conservative, though. They actually pushed for
Yeah.
conservative ideals.
In which way?
The whole Tea Party thing was against was lowering taxes and pro life and pretty much all the conservative stuff that you'd want. But again, part of their problem also was they were pushing during midterm. They didn't
The
have there was no
the,
Tea Party candidate.
the Tea Party was behind Moms for Liberty was the catalyst or the spearhead for the Tea Party. And they've come out
Yeah.
to be found. They're a bunch of wackatoos. They're just
Well, and again, that's why I say I don't think you have a conservative. You're not going to have somebody who's truly conservative come out and
a traditional conservative.
well, yeah, an actual.
I don't know who on the red team is there.
And that's what I mean. No matter who it is, like again, you could have Mike Lee, who I would personally call a conservative, pro-family, small government. Rand Paul is
No,
libertarian conservative.
yeah.
I like Rand Paul.
What about Cornyn? Cornyn out of Texas is it Cornyn?
Yeah, the senator.
Yeah.
But again, I think that if between the two, it's Cruz. Cruz would be a better choice. But not a better choice. I shouldn't say that. Cruz is more of a conservative. But I think if you're going to have somebody come out of Texas, it should be Abbott.
Abbott would get destroyed in the national
I don't
race.
think so. I don't think so. Abbott, the way Abbott does things, he's very low key. He's a conservative. He gets stuff done. Honestly, it's probably a benefit. I don't want to say it's a benefit that he's in a wheelchair, but it also makes you look bad if you attack him, if you go after him. But I don't
You have
think
to be careful in your attack. Yeah.
you have to be. Yes, you can't say he's Hot Wheels. Um, but a lot can change. I mean, that's the real interesting thing is we're talking
Yeah,
about
I just
we're doing the same thing that we hate. Oh, we're talking about something for 3.5
which
years.
is yeah. I think I don't see the guy out of California running. I think he's all
Newsom.
fluff, no substance. Yeah, I think he's all
Oh,
fluff, no
Newsom
substance.
will run. Oh, he'll
He'll get
absolutely
exposed.
run.
He'll get exposed though quick. He'll get
Yeah.
exposed and destroyed quick. Oh,
Speaking of, um, who was the guy that it wasn't Schiff, Adam Schiff. Who was the Democratic congressman who had the affair with the Chinese spy?
I don't know.
Do you remember his name?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I think
No.
he's the second. Isn't it? It's not Adam. Anyway, he got honeypotted by a Chinese spy. And I remember a couple weeks ago he came out and he was talking to. He was on part of the committee for vetting the different people on the Trump. And he's like, I have a built-in BS detector, and it's like you you have a what? You have a built-in you got honeypotted by a Chinese spy. I guess your BS detector wasn't working very well.
It was in the shop. It was in the shop.
It was in the shop. Yeah, we just
What
had to
about
talk about that. So
what's the girl out of Michigan? Whitmer.
I think Whitmer would be I think Whitmer would be a little too Palin, if that makes sense. I think some of the stuff she's said is a bit kooky, kind of like Noam for
Yeah.
North Dakota.
Yeah.
I think it's tough. I think the Republicans especially missed the boat with Meg Whitmer in the 2000 because she was a professional. She was she was like the head of IBM, the CEO of IBM or something. Very well spoken. But I think that was Romney's election. I think either way.
Oh.
But I think you'd have to have somebody. I think the next one probably for both sides should be a governor. But I think that J.D. Vance for the Republicans is probably going to have the inside track. I could see Rubio throwing his hat in again. The way Rubio, I tell you, I'm starting to dig the don't give a crap Rubio. I kind of like what he's doing. He's not playing these games. He's taking a page from Trump's book, and when they ask him a question, he goes, "No, I'm not playing that game. Your premise is BS. No, that's a load of crap." Like, I'm trying to think of a specific one. I think he did it with the South African refugees. And,
he just recently did it with the dinner. With the dinner.
I didn't see it. What was that one? That
was pretty big. They was asking them about, have you vetted the guest list for the dinner? Do you know who's gonna be there? And he was like, nah. He was like, listen, man, I don't have the president's social calendar. That's not my job. Who he has at dinner is his business. I'm not going there with you guys. And the guy kept prodding. He was like, I would think that the Secretary of State will want to know, if you have interest, if you have people of high interest coming into foreigners of high interest coming to. He was like, that's what we got Homeland Security for. He was like, that's not my gig. Like, you're not going to get me. Yeah. So the problem with Rubio is I think he's been at Trump's heel too long to be effective. And I don't know if Vance would make it out of the primary unscathed. You know what I'm saying? Like he'll come out shiny, but if they really allow the other candidates to attack Vance, I don't think he survives, man. I don't think he survives the candidacy.
I wonder though if you're going to have a situation with Vance and Rubio and the Republican side, if they actually go back and look at Reagan's, what is it, 13th, what is it? He called it the 11th commandment, thou shalt not attack another Republican.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they decide kind of unofficially and say, look, we need to really understand that when we go after each other with gloves off, all we're doing is setting up a Democrat to win. So if we want to go after each other with kid gloves, okay, and we want to point out what our different policies are, that would be the smart thing to do. Nobody has accused Republican politicians of being smart in a while. I think that would be the way to go. But I do think you and I have talked about this. The bench for the Republicans, I do think, is much deeper than the bench for the Democrats. But it's going to be interesting. We'll see.
Yeah.
And I think what happens with Vance going, like you said about next year, if Harris goes out and she stumps for Democrats, I think Vance is going. Vance is going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I think Rubio has some real opportunities here on the world stage. I think that, especially with how fast the world is changing.
Yeah.
Part of the problem is it almost goes too fast because like nobody's even talking about like Pakistan and India. We were literally potentially hours away from a nuclear war, and Rubio and the Trump administration got in the middle of it and said, "Hey, jokers, you need to stop this." And
Yeah.
it was kind of like a news story for about 10 minutes. Like, yeah, I guess the Trump administration did okay on that one. The New York Times. I guess Rubio was okay on that. I mean, all he did was avert nuclear war, but what are we going to do, right? But I would not be surprised in the next presidential election if it really is about China. I think we didn't get to talk about it, but the Ukrainians shockingly went after Putin's helicopter that was in Ukraine. He was visiting the troops, and the Russians said they shot down, I think it was around 60 UAVs, 60 drones, and got safe. Now, who knows? That could be, the Soviets
exaggerated quite a
pumping
bit.
it up, and yeah. But I could also see like Putin's not exactly 20 years old either. I mean, he's getting a little older. But you could always, there's always the possibility that he's not there. And I think the next Russian president is not going to be the dictator that Putin is, because Putin, unless I'm wrong, Putin hasn't set anybody up to be the next one.
No.
So I think it's going to be Xi in China still, because he is very much entrenched. And China's going to be the big thing, especially with what's going on economically with Trump and the tariffs and the world powers, the way they go. Like, I think that the Ukraine war is, even if it keeps going, it's not even front page news anymore. Not really. Like, Americans have kind of gone, hey, yeah, Ukraine. And even Europe is going, okay, we'll go in and we'll help. And then you don't really see anything out of it. I'm sure don't get me wrong, it's still a big deal for Ukrainians and it's still a big deal for Russians. But I think especially for Americans, they've kind of gone, yeah. Like, you don't see the big protests. It's moved on to Palestine and Israel. That's a big one. And then you have the manufactured ones, like the South Africans. Oh my gosh. The only reason these South Africans are being let in is because they're white. It's like, we're talking about 49 people that are here because they truly fear that their farms are going to be taken over. And
those they were brought in because they were white. I don't bullshit. I mean, we ain't gonna sugarcoat it.
No.
They were only brought in because they were white. One dude was a rapper. The other dude had like two business. It's like,
of course they were brought in because they were white. But at the same time, when you have a political party, one of the bigger political parties in South Africa saying, go kill the white man, and there are laws on the books in South Africa, that are basically saying we're going to take back land. Now,
yeah, none of that shit's true. None of that's true though. I love you like a brother, but none of that's true. None of that's true.
If you go look at the actual reporting that's getting done, it is true.
No.
Okay, hold on.
Not that it's true, though.
Time out for a second. Hold on.
The ruling party, the ruling party has bipartisan support.
Biracial support?
Bipartisan. You're talking about the two factions, right? So they have much like our MAGA movement. Consider their MAGA movement a bunch of Native Africans, a bunch of dark people. Their MAGA movement is a bunch of dark people who are saying, "Hey, we've given our country over to immigrants too long. We need to take our country back. This is what it is. It's our country. We need to take it back. We need to get our resources." Right. So that's their MAGA movement. It's just the skin colors reversed, right? And their Democratic Party or their Libertarian Party are the white South Africans who own 94% of the land and saying, "Hey, we don't want to give this shit up. We've owned it. We got it rightfully. I earned this from my daddy, so it's mine, and I'm not going to give it to you." So, but what you have in the middle is the majority who's in party right now, and this president is really cool with walking the line. See, a lot of the media, depending on where you get your media from, is trying to say he's an extremist, but he's not. He's actually getting it from both ends, because the people on the MAGA side of his party are saying, "You're not doing enough. We need to take back everything." Whereas the people on the Liberal Party are saying, "Hey man, you're taking away too much stuff." So he's walking a pretty fine line of trying to get shit together. But yeah, there's no laws on the book to kill Whitey. There is no active genocide in South Africa.
No.
No world report. Nowhere else in the world outside of the United States is reporting genocide in South Africa. None.
I'm not saying there's genocide going on. What I'm saying is there are active laws on the books that skin color matters.
Yeah, going the opposite way though.
Well, when you're talking about the MAGA party, okay, the Black MAGA party.
Yes.
Let's see. Make South Africa great again.
Yeah.
That doesn't really sound good, right?
The SAGA party.
The SAGA party. South Africa great again.
There we go. SAGA party.
South Africa,
white farmers being killed because they don't keep that data, Liberty.
Right. So there are laws on the books that are basically, and you have political parties that are pushing for the reclamation of white-owned farms to be given back to the state and redistributed to black farmers. Okay.
Yes.
The biggest problem, or not problem, the biggest difference there is the white Afrikaners that are there have been there. We're not talking like, hey, these are new guys that can't. We're talking about 300-400 years. Now, that this goes back to the Native American versus European, whatever, right? And that's where now it becomes the question, right? At what point does land become the new person's land, right? So this is the same argument in America of the left that says, "Oh, this is all stolen land." Well, that argument falls apart pretty quickly when you say, "Well, okay, what tribe was in southern Georgia?" Okay, well, or Georgia. Well, it was the Seminoles, right? Well, the Seminoles were kicked out, and they, were the Trail of Tears, blah blah blah, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to downplay that, but I'm just
no, you're good. I got you.
Right. But before the Seminoles came in and they kicked out the people that were there before that, and the tribe that was there before that came in and wiped out the tribe that was before that. And you go back far enough, right? Yeah. So then it's history in the world has always been the owner of the land is whoever's strong enough to keep it, right? So this idea of well, it should be given to this group or that group because of historical claims, because of history. That is really a pretty brand new idea in terms of the world. This is not something that And when I say brand new, I'm talking about like in the last 100 years. Okay, I'm not saying
It's a more diplomatic view, because here's what happens if you don't. You get accused of genocide, and then that's when the assistance comes in, right? If they kept up with historical traditions, just like you said, he who conquers the land owns the land. So if a bunch of if a bunch of black South Africans got together and just wiped out the invading population and took the land over, then it would be considered, oh, now it's genocide, right? But if they do it diplomatically and say, hey, listen, all right, we're not allocating all of it, we're just taking some of it and we're redistributing it, right? Here's where I have the biggest problem with it. We'll sit back and we'll look at something like that happening in South Africa and we'll be like, oh my God, that's so wrong. That is an atrocity, right? But here in our own United States, we have done it for the last 150 plus years. And everybody's been cool with it. Black communities have been grazed, raised, flooded, moved for highways. Not a single eye has been bat. But now all of a sudden, it's the world's greatest issue.
But that's why I say it's a fairly new concept, right? Because if you're talking about 100 years ago, going in and saying, all right, this black family needs to get out of the valley or this black community needs to get out of the valley, or whites too. I mean, it didn't mean poor. It was just poor.
Right.
If you're poor, you're getting kicked
you're
out,
in the way.
right? Because we need to flood the Tennessee Valley
to
have these reservoirs, right?
Right.
So it's a fairly new concept. And so the rules have changed. And so that's why it's interesting historically. Again, this is where you and I have talked about the whole slavery idea. Slavery up until the early 19th century was the norm. And then Great Britain came out and said, hey, no, this morally, this is wrong. And then about 50 years later, the U.S. said, hey, yeah, we need half of the United States came out and said, half came out and said, yeah, maybe this isn't the best system we should be doing. And so you can't go, and this is where, like, when we say it's okay now to look back and say, not okay. If you're going to call it genocide in South Africa right now, then you have recognized that it was genocide against the black communities in Indiana that the Ku Klux Klan was running through and killing everybody in southern Indiana, right? Okay. And through the lens of current, yes, you can say that. But the problem is the word genocide didn't even exist until the 1940s. It got coined by, I'm trying to remember who the person's name was. It was either late 40s or early 50s. So before that, genocide didn't even exist as a word. Genocide back then was you go in and you wipe out whoever's in your land. I mean, you go back far enough,
or the land that you
so the Israelites. What did Let's go historically here. Biblical. We'll go biblical historical for those who say, the Bible's not right. Bible.
Way back.
Let's go biblically historical. Moses leads the Israelites out of Egypt because they'd gotten too big, they'd gotten too powerful, and Pharaoh says, F you guys, nope, we're not doing this. I'm going to keep you guys under my thumb, and eventually the plagues, blah, blah, blah. Moses takes them out, Red Sea, they come across. And Moses says, all right, we're going to go down into the promised land before they started doing their gold calves and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what were they going to do? They were going to go in, and they did go in to the area because God said, this is your land, the Israel and Palestine, the Palestinian land, the area, not Palestine, the country, because there's never been a Palestine, the country, Palestine, that plot of land. And he said, go in and wipe out every man, woman, and child, as well as their cattle, right? Okay. By the terms of today, that was 100% absolutely genocide. And so there are people who would turn around and say, oh, so God was a genocidal maniac. How can God be God if he approved this? But it was genocide. Well, historically, if you go back and you look at it and say, well, that's just how it was. That's what happened. There was genocide. If you want to go by the terms of what we call genocide, the Muslims genocided,
Sure.
the Africans genocided, the Indians, India, the country, genocided, the Chinese committed genocide, the Chinese committed genocide, the Koreans committed genocide. They all tried. Everybody's tried to gain power by wiping out everybody of the other group. The Aborigines of Australia, if they could have, they would have wiped out every white prisoner that was being dumped on their shores if they had been strong enough to do it. But they weren't. So when you're talking about genocide and you're talking about these things, it's such a modern phrase and it's such a modern term. So what's going on in South Africa to say it's genocide, it is it's hyperbole. It's not genocide. They're not going in and wiping out the entire white population of South Africa. Is it fair? Fair by who? Again, if we're saying might makes right, and for however many decades or hundreds of years that the whites came in as a minority and controlled the country of South Africa, and they treated the black Africans like absolute crap, and now the black Africans are like, F you guys, we're going to come in and we're going to take back the land. Well, yeah, okay. I mean, might makes right. So at the same time, if the United States says, okay, well, we're going to allow however many white Africans to come in, I'll tell you what, here's, to me, and this, you might disagree with this. To me, the most striking difference is when you see the protests that have happened over the last 4 years for illegal immigrants in this country. You see, and we've talked about this, you see flags of Mexico being flown, flags of Venezuela being flown, flags of every other country. You have these 50 South Africans, and maybe it was planned, maybe, but what did they do? They all got off the plane and they were all have their little American flag. Not one of them was going, "Oh, South Africa flag."
Thanks. They were brought in with jets, fed meals, taken care of, given medical care, and given flags. If we took that type of attention and care to our southern border, right, and we gave those guys flags and welcomed them into the country, do you think they would wave the American flag happily and proudly when they crossed the border?
What's the difference? Well, that did happen. The Biden administration did fly Venezuelans and from other countries into the United States. The difference is they did it they were kind of like, nobody tell anybody. Nobody tell anybody. And you can say it's brown skin, black skin, white skin, whatever. But I think there is a difference between if you try to do it and it looks sneaky, it looks bad. But if the early 2000s, no, it was with Obama. So it would have been around 2010. I'm telling you, there was a huge protest to try to make illegal. They were trying to push the Obama administration to legalize the people that.
What was it? The guys coming over the raft, right? Elian Gonzalez or something like that.
But no, it wasn't even that. It was in Los Angeles, a big thing in California. Like that, they had these big, like 500,000 people in Los Angeles. I still remember the picture. That this whole LA, the street is completely full of people saying, we want to be accepted as legal. We want to come out of the woodwork. We want to be here. And you could not see a single U.S. flag. Every single flag there was Mexico. It's perception. If you want to say it's part of the show and part of the media portrayal, I agree with you. I think if you're a South Africaner who you were flown over in a jet and taken care of whatever, and you're going, yay, America. It doesn't hurt that you're like, yay, America. I think if the people that were, again, I would have felt a lot better about anybody that wants to come to this country, that the first thing they do is they fly a flag out of their house a U.S. flag. And again, I've said for a long time, I'm all for immigration, legal immigration. But when you have people who come into the country and refuse to learn English, I lived in Taiwan for 2 years as a missionary. You think everybody spoke English? Heck no, I was expected to learn Chinese. If I moved anywhere in the world right now that was not an English speaking country, I'd be expected to learn that language. And I think that's a lot of the arguments of what Americans kind of look at and go, why do we cater to people who don't seemingly want to be part of this country? And
But you
those
don't
that
really,
do,
but the catering is backwards though. That's what I'm saying.
how so?
Because we use that word and we say catering, right? But you're not really catering to these illegal immigrants. Well, you're catering to some, not others, right? Even in terms of deportation, right? Even in terms of deportation, we talked about this, right? Those northeastern hubs where you got all those Ukrainians and those Eastern Europeans who have violated visas, not showing up for court reports. You don't see ICE and HHS busting in their neighborhoods. You're not in Boston, where there is a known huge Eastern Russian block of illegal immigrants there. Not one ICE raid. It's been 6 months, not one single ICE raid. What you have seen is you've seen a bunch of brown communities devastated. You've seen to the point to where they are posting up outside of courthouses, waiting for immigration cases, and then snatching them up, defying the court orders with a bunch of brown people. But then you say, okay, cool, we don't want no immigration. That's been the story. Too many people were stopping immigration. This thing happens in South Africa. The first thing you do is you charter a plane, send them over, pick them up, cater them all the way here, fast track their immigration status, feed them, clothe them, and give them the stipend that you complained about that the illegals were getting. Everything that you have been staunchly opposed to, you cater to these Africans because they're white, and then you say it's okay because they were waving an American flag in the airport. And then we say, oh, well, that's the difference. I am certainly sure if we took a more concerted effort to control our border and provide the same care that we provided those Africans, a lot of those people coming across the southern border will be just as happy and just as enthusiastic to wave the flag. If they had a path to citizenship, that's the difference.
A lot of stuff there. One, I've said this the whole time. Anybody that's here illegally should be kicked out.
Yeah.
Kick out the Irish. Get rid of them. If you're here illegally and you're Irish, GTFO.
Yeah, I'm not. Russian, yeah, when I say you, I don't mean you. I'm talking about at the different.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm saying it in general because I can only speak for myself, right?
Yeah.
But I also think that there is a level of, you don't see a lot of Russians or Czechs or illegal Irish who are running around with flags as a group, because the numbers aren't as big, to be fair, saying, hey, we need the rights, we demand to stay here, when it's right in your face. I mean, it's right. Look, if somebody's here illegally, I'm not going to go next door and call ICE, right? I think most people are kind of like, if you're keeping it low key, nobody's really going to say anything. There's not a lot of stories about Russian mobsters going out and raping and murdering 12-year-old girls. And so the stories, it becomes a narrative. And when the narrative and the narrative dominates, what happened with the George Floyd a few years ago? ACAB, right? Every cop's a bastard. The narrative became that every police, even though if you look at the statistics of how many interactions there are between police and civilians, the number of like certifiably bad police officers is very, 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 very small. But even you have one dude who goes out and shoots an unarmed black kid, a white guy who goes and shoots an unarmed black kid, and it looks absolutely horrible, and it should. But at the same time, you see a group of Memphis cops who are all black, who are on a squad known for their violence, they go out and literally beat a man to death, internally decapitate him, and he's leaning up against a car. Have you heard of anything that has happened with those guys? I haven't heard a single thing, but we all know Chavin is in jail.
They got acquitted.
Did they get acquitted? I don't even know. Yeah. So life's unfair. The system's unfair. The fact that there's 50 South Africans, I don't think you can really equate 50 South Africans being brought here in pure daylight and given flags is the same as letting, 10 million people come across the border illegally. Because at least with the Afrikaners, those 50 at least were vetted. You would hope. Again,
they weren't.
You would,
but they weren't. That's what I'm saying. It's just kind of like.
How do you know they weren't though?
Because they didn't
even vet 50 people.
Because they didn't find out what they did until they got here. This is just reporting. So based on the reports that have come out since they've landed.
And we both trust the media reports about as far as we can get. You know what? It's been 2.5 hours, dude.
Yeah,
this
man.
was fun.
We can call it.
But we got to cut it. I got to go to bed.
Yeah, we only got 8 hours left this month. All right.
Hey, what's the plan before we cut off? What is the plan for next week? Because you are going to be in the middle of a road.
I'll be in the middle of the country somewhere.
Will it be dependent on how good your Wi-Fi in the hotel is?
Yep. So you'll probably take the lead on posting, and then I'll pop in as a guest, and we'll rock it from there.
Cool.
Final thoughts. Let's do it, man.
We don't. Hey, final thoughts is if we have a guest set up, frickin' be there so we can have you on. The real final thought is this: it's too bad that the Ukrainians didn't get lucky with one of their drones on the Putin aircraft. That's too bad.
They are catching hell. Russia's been bumming the hell out in the last couple of days.
Well,
hate to see it.
Hey, you know what? I do too, but unless Europe, this is not an American war. This is a European war, and Europe needs to do something about it. And that's why Putin hasn't backed down, because he knows Europe isn't gonna do nothing.
Hate to see it. All right, man. Next week we try it again. All right.
Hey, thanks, Liberty.
See you next week, man. Bye-bye. Play the outro, man.
Gee, Ray, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world. Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr. Lance O'Neill.
Try to take over the world.